This is Outlook from the BBC World Service. I'm Matthew Bannister. Coming later in the programme, from a childhood in China to a starring role in a UK reality TV show, we meet former apprentice Susan Ma. But before that, a traveller's tale involving a 40,000-kilometre bike ride around the world. Canadian Michael Schratter has already pedalled the length of the Americas and crossed Australia and Southeast Asia. He then flew from Shanghai to Finland and cycled south across Europe. He'd just taken a ship across the Mediterranean and arrived in the Moroccan capital Rabat when he bumped into Outlook reporter Anton Foek.
I met with this gentleman at the doorsteps of my hotel, and I saw him in his biking gear and a race bike, sort of a race bike, and a T-shirt says Tintin au Cambodge.
Oh, from Cambodia, when I was in Cambodia.
Oh, you've been to Cambodia?
Yeah, I crossed the halfway mark around the world in Siem Reap in Cambodia.
Why are you doing this?
I'm a person that has suffered from mental illness, bipolar in particular, and the affliction itself I don't find too debilitating, but rather the stigma that's associated with mental illness.
How does that translate, though, Michael?
Probably a feeling of shame. I think as a social animal as we are, it's absolutely necessary to communicate and to talk, and especially when one is not well, when one is either physically or mentally sick. So, for example, if you were to show up to work with a cast on your arm, you would get empathy, you'd get understanding, and I think that's really important as you cope with your injury and you go to heal. This isn't the case with someone that's dealing with mental illness. If they talk about it, if they make it aware amongst their coworkers or something like that, there's a serious chance of being stigmatized or ostracized. The illness sort of forces you to hide almost, and that, for me, brings out a feeling of shame. And really, why would anyone have to feel ashamed? It's not a mark of their character if they're afflicted with a mental illness or any other physical or mental affliction.
Yes. So you did something about it. You went on a bike. You're from Vancouver. When did you start biking?
I left August 1st, 2010, and I'm due back in Vancouver, Canada, November the 12th, having completed 40,000 kilometers. 40,000 kilometers is the equatorial distance around the planet. And in fact, tomorrow in Casablanca, I cross the 30,000 kilometer mark. So tomorrow I cross the three-quarter mark.
Congratulations, man. But the challenge as a bipolar person must be very, very strong, very high.
I'm one of those fortunate people. I'm not afflicted with it very deeply. There's a term called hypomania, meaning small. I go through mood undulations once or twice a year. Thankfully, nothing that's extreme that requires medication or hospitalization. It has happened to me 10, 15 years ago where it was a little more severe and I had to be hospitalized. Generally, I do just fine. I feel it's brought empathy and an understanding towards people that are afflicted with mental health issues.
And now you're touring on your bike around the world to help these people.
Yes, the campaign is called RideDon'tHide.com, and I've raised about $40,000 that goes towards the Canadian Mental Health Federation, towards youth education, so that high school students are more, and teachers, high school teachers are more aware of mental health implications. So I've raised some money. I also have a column that gets published every 2 weeks in a Vancouver newspaper that is all around mental health issues, especially mental health issues that I see in the countries that I'm traveling through. Mm-hmm. So I think the only way to really combat stigma is to bring it out in the open. Just basically bringing it out from the shadows, or trying my best to.
By your biking?
Yes, yeah.
You must have met a number of very interesting people.
Definitely.
Tell me about that.
First and foremost, the world is a beautiful place, and it's a safe place. You know, having been on the road now on a bicycle for well over a year, and to have not really had any difficulty, to have had no one that's tried to scam me, to have had no one that's tried to cheat me. People have taken me into their houses. People have offered me meals. They always want to chat.
Where did that happen?
Oh, it's happened all over the place. Really, all over the place. People run into you at a store.
Oh, really?
And they see what you're doing.
Start chatting with you?
They start chatting with me, kind of like how we met, yes. Uh-huh. And I think there's something to do with being on a bicycle, too, that I think it's very non-threatening. I think people, when they see you on a bike, they assume you're a gentle soul.
How did the first idea to do this occur?
I've always been an adventurous lad. There's a story in my family that my mom used to have to sew my address and my name in my jacket so that if I went wandering off as a baby, someone could know where I live and take me home. So I've always been into adventure. I've always been a big fan of Tintin and National Geographic. So that's where that sort of need for adventure came from. I cycled across Canada in 94. When I got to the eastern seaboard of Canada, I had to go back to university, and I swore to myself someday I would cycle around the world. In 96, I had a manic episode while in university, and I was hospitalized. That one episode I alluded to earlier. I thought, okay, if you're going to cycle around the world someday, why not do it for the Canadian mental health and do it for battling the stigma that surrounds mental illness? You know, that dream, 96, we're talking 15 years ago, I thought I would do it. And then over the years, the dream just didn't go away. It would come and go, and sometimes I would flesh it out, and I would really fantasize about doing it some days, and other times in the year it would just seem ludicrous. And then, God bless my fiancée, Deborah, she basically was the push that made it happen, in the sense that she said, it's now or never.
Canadian campaigner Michael Schratter speaking to Anton Foek in Rabat.